بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. So we continue with this reading that we have been doing from this book Hayatuna al-Musliya from the Shaykh Muhammad Umari or our family life, between that which is the reality and that which we hope for. And so we'll be beginning the second mabhath, the second field of study, which is centered around, it is centered around the mashakil, problems that occur in the family, and the hulul, the means to remedy or solutions to those problems. The Shaykh, he says that the manzila and the status of the family, it is the manzila that is azima fi deen. It has a tremendous status in the religion. And due to this, al-Islam, it has come advising with the affair of az-ziwaj, marriage. Islam advises and encourages marriage, and it gives due consideration to it, and it promotes it. And the foundation, or that marriage is the foundation upon which the family is built. Because we don't start families in Islam any other way, other than by way of marriage. And likewise, the arfaf and nufuz, it is that which keeps people chaste from falling into impermissible affairs. They just get married. من أجل إنشاء الأسرة, in order to start a family upon a solid foundation. And that foundation, it will be a strong foundation. And therefore the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he encouraged marriage and advised with it in many narrations. And this is from that which indicates and proves the importance of this matter. From the narrations that indicate this is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Tazawwaju al-wadud al-walud." He said, "Marry the wadud and the walud." We mentioned this some weeks ago concerning this narration. He said, "Marry the women who are wadud, they are affectionate, they're loving, they are loving and affectionate wives." Meaning, seek out this type of woman, the woman who is affectionate and loving. And she is walud, she is childbearing. فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرٌ بِكُمُ الْأُمُمَ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ, because I will boast regarding you and your large number in comparison to the other nations on the day of judgment. So we see in this narration the encouragement towards looking for a wife that is loving and affectionate. Because if she is loving and affectionate, then she will come into frequent contact with her husband. She will interact with him much due to her affection that she has for him. And this will bring about the second portion of the narration, al-walud. She is childbearing. She has children. And we see the reasoning or the illah for this encouragement mentioned in the latter part of the narration, because I will boast regarding your large number on the day of judgment. So here, by way of this, we see one, that the legislation of al-Islam, it encourages marriage for the purpose of starting and cultivating a family. Likewise, it encourages having an abundance of children. Not just stopping short. I just want to have one child and that's it. I don't want to have any children at all, and so on and so forth. These types of concepts are foreign to our religion. Rather, the Messenger of Allah, alayhi wasallam, he encourages marriage to the women that are affectionate and loving, and thus childbearing. Why? Because he's going to boast regarding the large number of the ummah. Secondly, he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, "Ya ma'ashara al-shabab," or assembly of youth, "Man istata'a minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj." He amongst you who has drive, let him get married. فإنه أغض للبصر, because marriage, it is better in terms of helping a person lower his gaze. نعم وأحسن للفرج, and it is better in helping a person to safeguard his private parts. Get married. نعم. And he said, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَعَلَيْهِ بِالصَّوْمِ, and he who is not able to get married, then let him fast. فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ وِجَاء, because it is something which will diminish that craving that he has. Thirdly, the Prophet ﷺ, he rebutted and repudiated those three individuals who came to ask about his ibadah. They asked about his worship and how it was, ﷺ. And so once they were informed regarding his worship, it is as if they deemed his worship to be something light. So one of them said, as for me, then I'm never going to get married. I'm just going to refrain from getting married forever. Another individual said, I'm going to fast forever and I'm never going to break my fast. In another narration, the third individual, he mentioned, I'm never going to eat meat. I'm never going to eat any meat. It is as if they thought their way was more pious and righteous than that of the Messenger of Allah. And so he said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Amma inni, as for myself, asum wa uftir. He said, I fast sometimes and sometimes I don't. He says, likewise, I stand at night sometimes to pray and sometimes I sleep. Wa atazawwaj an-nisa, and I marry women. And I get married to women. So therefore, he who turns away from my sunnah is not of me. Fourthly, he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, and these are all evidences showing and highlighting that the Sharia encourages marriage for the purpose of cultivation of a family, starting a family. He said, حُبِّبَ إِلَيَّ مِن دُنْيَاكُمْ النِّسَاءُ وَطِيبٌ. He said, made beloved to me of your dunya are women and atib, and sweet smelling aromas. Everything that is good smelling, according to Shaykh bin Baz, he mentioned in explanation of his narration, it is not just oils, but rather oils, bukhur, all good scents, all good smells were made beloved to the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Fifthly, it has come from Tawus that Umar radiallahu anhu asked a man, are you married? He asked the man, are you married? The man said, La. He said, no. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, Imma an takuna ahmaq wa imma an takuna fajiran. Umar said to the man who, because some other people, they just, they go years and years and years and years and years without even pursuing marriage, not even looking for it, not even thinking about it. And they believe this to be righteous. Umar, he said, he asked this man, are you married? The man said, no. Umar said, either you're an idiot, either you're an ahmaq, or you're a fajr, you're a wicked person. You're just trying to, do some things you're not supposed to be doing. وجاء في بعض روايات عن Umar, and other narrations of the same athar from Umar, he said to this individual who refused to get married, didn't want to marry, لا يمنعك منه إلا فجور أو عجز. He said nothing prevents you from getting married except wickedness. Either you're just wicked, you're just trying to go and sin and act like you're married when you're not married, do things that people do without being married. So it's either fujur or ajiz, or you're impotent. It's one of the two. So all of this goes to show and to highlight. These are 5 narrations from the prophetic ahadith, and likewise narrations from the Salaf, showing us and highlighting to us the encouragement that Islam has for the affair of marriage and starting a family. فالزوجان طرفا حياة ميثاقها الحب والتودد. So the two spouses, they are two parties in a unit, and that unit, when it is brought together, it will bring about love and affection. وما He said, and that which the texts contain within them from the encouragement of ziwaj, all of that shows the importance of this matter. Now, in order that the family is established and built, and by way of that, the mujtama'at al-muslima, the Muslim community, thrives and survives on that basis. He says, and so these families, this family unit, إنما تكون سعيدة محققة لمقاصد النكاح التي دعت إليها الشريعة. He says that this family unit, it can only be a happy family. It can only be a happy family actualizing the maqasid and the objectives behind marriage. Because the objectives behind marriage are what? Number one, finding affection and love. Finding affection and love. Finding comfort. These are the objectives behind marriage. Affection, love, comfort, and likewise, children. These are the objectives of marriage. Now, and the only way the family unit can be a Sa'ida family unit, actualizing these objectives, which the Sharia has called to, the only way they can do that is if it actualizes the Salah fi afradiha. The individuals in that family unit are upright. The individuals in that family, both the husband and the wife, need to be striving towards the same goals. They both have to be upright. وَذَلِكَ بِصَلَاحِ دِينِهِمْ. And this is only by way of the uprightness and rectification of their deen. وَبِاتِّبَاعِ حَجِّ نَبِيِّهِمْ صلى الله عليه وسلم. And by following the guidance of their Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. And therefore, the Muslim family, they have akhlaq, yani when they are doing what they're supposed to do, they have the characteristics and mannerisms that are rafi'ah, that are yani lofty characteristics in family and features. Now, and this is due to them adhering to the Sharia. أما ما قد حصل فيما نراه الآن في الأسر من انحراف أو اختلاف. As for that which we see today in many families, from deviation or opposition and differing or niza or frequent argumentation, fighting, or other than this, from corrupting factors, then the greatest reasons and causes for that is opposition to the Sharia. When the people in the household are opposing the legislation of Allah Ta'ala, it is inevitable there will be unhappiness, there will be rifts, there will be tension, there will be discord. Why? Because you are opposing the book of Allah Ta'ala and the Sunnah of the Masjid alayhi salam. Either one individual in that family is doing so or everybody's doing so. But this is the primary reason for inhiraf of the family and niza and argumentation and fighting and bickering, because somebody is opposing the legislation. Because if everybody in that household is adhering to the Sharia, then no doubt you will have harmony. No doubt you will have tranquility, you will have love and affection. وعدم الاحتكام إلى هدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And likewise, he said, from the reasons for this, the primary reasons for this, is not resorting back to the guidance of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam whenever you have disputes. Let's sit down and see what the book of Allah says. Let's see what the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam said. Let's see how he dealt with these issues. When we leave that off, then no doubt we're going to have schism in the family. وفي واقع الحال فإنه لا يكاد ينجو بيت من وجود. He says that in reality, the reality of the affair is that nearly no home is safe from having some type of arguments or disagreements and so on and so forth. However, he says it is a must that we deal with these affairs with patience, with forbearance. Now, and likewise, by way of examining the affair for what it is and looking for the asbab, looking for the means to quell these issues and these problems that are between us. فإنه قد تمر على أفراد الأسرة لحظات فرح وطرح. Because the individuals in the family unit. We have our ups and we have our downs. Every individual in their family, the woman, the man, children, everybody's going to have their ups and their downs. They're going to have their instances wherein they are happy, other instances when they're not so much. Now, they're going to have times wherein they're in a state of safety and security. They're going to have other times wherein they may be in a state of khawf, a state of fear. Maybe something is heard at the window and so on and so forth. Someone tried to break in the car and so on and so forth. So sometimes we're going to be in a state of safety and security. Other times there's going to be some issues that we have to deal with as a family. At times there are going to be times of diq wa faraj. There are going to be times wherein things are tight and restricted financially. Now we're going to have our financial ups and downs. There's going to be times of comfort and times of fatigue. However, ليس كل حزن أو ضيق أو هم أو عذر أو هو عذر. He says, however, that every instance of sadness, and one person is in a bad mood today, every instance of tightness in terms of finances or situation, or every instance of grief is not an excuse to destroy the family. It is not an excuse or a reason to destroy the family. Rather, he says, much of the differences and argumentations and schisms that occur within one family, if the two spouses were to take control of it, and they take control of it with using their intellects, using sound judgment and sound intellect, they take control of that issue, they attack that issue together as a family, he says, then you will find that that issue, it departs and it goes away. And after that, it's going to be followed up by way of sa'adah, happiness, joy. Just think, you look at a family that's been together 20 years, 30 years. How many ups and downs have they had throughout the course of that 30 or 20 years? How many times that have they been through situations and fights and so on and so forth, they was like, this is it right here. But they pull through. They pull through until they find themselves 30 years down the line and those things are a distant memory. They're distant memory. And what followed that up, when they dealt with the issue with sound intellect, sound judgment, referring back to Kitab and Sunnah, the end result, what followed that up was happiness and joy. And those things, they serve to strengthen the bond between the spouses. We've been through a lot together. We had a lot of ups and downs. Now, and those ups and downs only serve to strengthen the bond that there is between the spouses. He says, so what follows that up is sa'ada baligha, far-reaching happiness. And he says, and perhaps there is a way to do away with it before it even occurs. Before the problem or the schism even occurs, you can do away with it. Now, to the point that he says that happiness, it cannot even be expected. He says, فَيُعْتِي الْأُسْرَ الْكَثِيرِ مِنَ الثَّبَاتِ وَالْإِسْتِقْرَارِ وَالْإِسْتِمْرَارِ. And the family, it will not have an abundance of firmness and stability and continuity. وَمَا يَتَحَقَّقْ هَذَا. These things cannot be actualized except by way of hard work. By way of hard work in exposing and discovering the asbab, the reasons behind the problems. Let's look for what's causing these issues, what's causing this feeling that a person has within their heart towards their spouse of distrust or displeasure and so on and so forth. Let's look for the root of the problem and attack at its root. He says, and likewise, the bringing about of the solution, the legislative solutions for those differences in light of that which has come to us from the text, and avoiding opinion, avoiding I feel and I think, and avoiding the likes of this kalam. Rather, those opinions, you will find they have no basis whatsoever from the legislation. Avoiding bad advice, avoiding looking on YouTube to some sister girl chat, round table talk for what's going on in a Muslim household from Kufar. Now, these things have no basis in the Shar, in the legislation. Or they look for tafsirat batila. They look for false and invalid explanations for affairs. أو وصايا مبناها على حياة لا تناسب حياة المسلمين. Or they look for advices which the origin of the advice, of that particular advice, is from a source that is in reality not appropriate for a Muslim household. He says, and the reasons for problems in a family are many. But from that which is going to come, inshallah ta'ala, is an attempt to restrict mention of these things to the most important and most prominent of those reasons for disputation and argumentation within a household, within a family. Now, and that which he says that we have combined them into 10 primary reasons, and we're going to attempt to clarify the ilajat, the solutions, and the remedies for these issues by way of the text of the two revelations. So we're going to mention, inshallah ta'ala, just the first one. Let's suffice with this for the night. And the first reason, the first sabab for schism inside of a family is ضعف الاستقامة الزوجين, is the weakness of the istiqamah, weakness of uprightness of the two spouses. They have deficiency and weakness in their istiqamah. And إعراض عن أحكام الشريعة, and turning away from the legislative rulings. When we don't make the sharia to be the end all be all as it relates to whatever there is between us, then we will have issues and problems. We don't refer back to the book of Allah, we refer back to what I think and what I feel, and you gotta understand, and so on and so forth. Let's see what the Kitab and Sunnah says, because in that, without doubt, lies sufficiency for all of us. So this is fair. ضعف الاستقامة. And istiqamah, he said, is ala deen Allah. That uprightness is uprightness upon the deen of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And enacting the wajibat, doing the commandments, those things that are obligatory, and abandoning the impermissible. وهو واجب كل مسلم ومسلمة. This is something which is obligatory upon every Muslim male and female. Every Muslim male and female. Allah Ta'ala said, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ. He said, be upright as you have been commanded to. Be upright, not how you want to. Not accepting some parts of the Sharia and rejecting other parts. Okay, I'm okay with doing this, but I don't want to do that. Rather, كَمَا أُمِرْتَ. Be upright, have istiqamah, كَمَا أُمِرْتَ. Just as you have been commanded to have istiqamah. Not how you want to. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, he said when he advised the individual who came to him seeking advice, he said, قُلْ أَمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَقِمْ. Say, I believe in Allah, and then have istiqamah. And then be upright upon that belief. Be upright upon that belief. وَالْإِسْتِقَامَةُ هِيَ فِعْلُ الْأَوَامِرِ. And istiqamah, he says, it is to enact the commandments of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَاجْتِنَابِ النَّوَاهِي, and avoiding his prohibitions. It has also been said that it is a tamassuk bid-deen kulli, to hold fast to the entirety of the religion. And from the greatest, now he lays out the affair of istiqamah and how we can have success within our families. Because the problem, the mushkila is what? Da'af, having weakness in our istiqamah. Now if you want to rectify that weakness that we have in our istiqamah, he gives you the method of doing so. What we should focus on inside the household. He says, مِنْ أَعْظَمِ مَا يَعْتَنِي بِهِ الْإِنسَانُ فِي صَلَاحِ أَمْرِهِ وَاسْتِقَامَةِ بَيْتِهِ. That from the greatest of that which the person should give due importance to in rectification of his affairs, and likewise the uprightness of his family, his household, is the affair of Tawheed, first and foremost. The affair of Tawheed. This is not some fairy tale stuff. It's not just something we give lip service to and we talk about in the class and that's it. Rather, these affairs have a deep connection to our lives. It's the foundation of everything that we do as Muslims. That Tawheed. That Tawheed. We cultivate our family upon that Tawheed. It's the key to success. And it's not just a myth. It's not just something to say. Nah. He says the affair of Tawheed, Ifradullah, and singling out Allah Ta'ala in worship. And this is by way of the husband, first and foremost, cultivating himself. He cultivates himself. He learns the affair of Tawheed, and he cultivates himself upon it, staying far removed from what opposes it, and likewise encouraging his family upon this, which is the first obligation upon every Muslim. وَالْمَقْصُودُ مِنْ خَلْقِ الْإِنسَانِ, and informing them about what is the intent behind the creation of mankind. Why were you created? Children should know this. Your wife should know this. You test each other. You strengthen each other in this regard. You have the likes of these lessons inside of your home, teaching the affair of Tawheed. And he says, وَهُوَ حُسْنُ التَّوَجُّهِ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَ بِتَوْحِيدِهِ فِي جَمِيعِ أَنْوَاعِ الْعِبَادَاتِ. And as well, he said, having an excellent manner of devotion to Allah Ta'ala with Tawheed in all of one's acts of worship. Every single act of worship. You make this the foundation, make it the focal point of your household. So that the children will know they don't just have to pray because mommy and daddy told them to. Rather, if that Tawheed is inside of their heart, they will wake you up for prayer. They will alert you that it's time to pray. The Tawheed is inside of their heart, firmly. Now, and this is whether those acts of worship are qawliya or fi'liya, whether they are statements, morning, evening supplications, and so on and so forth, or fi'liya, actions that the people do, prayer and the likes of this. وَالظَّاهِرَةِ وَالْبَاطِنَةِ, outward actions and inward actions. And then after this, one has to give due importance to as-salah, the affair of the prayer. The affair of the prayer. Cultivating the family upon prayer. And he says that, as Allah Ta'ala said, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ, that the prayer, it prevents one from fahsha and munkar, from lewdness and evil actions. The prayer will prevent a person from this. It'll prevent a person from this, to the point that Ibn Abbas, he said that if a person finds that his prayer does not prevent him from fahsha and munkar, then his prayer is only increasing him in distance from Allah Ta'ala. It is inevitable. If a person is praying as he should be praying as they should be praying, observing all of the sunnah, all of the wajibat, all of the arkan of the prayer, striving to pray jama'ah for the man as much as he possibly can. Now, and the woman observing the prayer inside of her home. If a person does this, then it will no doubt prevent them from fahsha and munkar. He said that, and this you will find it to be a sabab li daf'i al-ishkalat. It will be a means and a reason for the repelling of problems. وَالْبُعْدْ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَالْفَسَادِ, and distance from wickedness and corruption and the dissolution of the household. بَلْ إِنَّ مُحَافِظَ الْمَرْأَةِ عَلَى صَلَاتِهَا دُونَ أَنْ تُعْرَفْ لَهَا تَأْخِيرًا. He said, rather, the woman safeguarding her prayers, and not delaying her prayers, she prays on time and so on and so forth, is a reason for her entering into paradise. Due to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا صَلَّتِ الْمَرْأَةِ خَمْسَهَا, the woman prays her 5 prayers. If she prays her 5 prayers, وَصَامَتْ شَهْرَهَا, and she fasts her month, Ramadan. وَحَافِظَتْ فَرْجَهَا, she safeguards her private parts. وَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا, and she obeys her husband. قِيلَ لَهَا أُدْخِلِي الْجَنَّةَ مِنْ أَيِّ أَبْوَابِ الْجَنَّةِ شِئْتِ. It will be said to her, enter paradise through any of its gates that you wish. The pathway is easy for the woman. It's laid out. And from the masa'ib, from those things that are tumultuous is that we find in some Muslims households many men who abandon the prayer. Many men who don't pray. They don't pray. Imma bil kulliyya, either they abandon the prayer in totality, or bil tahawun and salat al-jama'ah, or they have lackadaisicalness as it relates to praying in jama'ah. As it relates to praying in jama'ah. And the Prophet alayhi salam, he said, as has come in hadith of Abu Hurairah, regarding the importance of salat and jama'ah, he says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, by he whose hand is my soul, لَقَدْ حَمَمْتُ أَنْ آمُرَ بِحَطَبٍ فَيُحْطَبَ. He said, I had considered commanding the people to gather firewood, and then commanding someone else to lead the prayer, and going and burning down the houses of all of those who stayed behind the congregational prayer. Now, and why is this? He said that. Why is he saying that he was going to have a man lead the prayer? One, due to the importance of the salah, the salah can be established, but likewise, so he can go down and burn down the houses of those people, of those munafiqeen, who were staying behind the prayer intentionally. And they know the prayer is going on. Ibn Mas'ud said that we used to know of a time wherein nobody would stay back from the congregational prayer except the hypocrite whose hypocrisy was well known. Everybody knows he's a hypocrite. That's the only people that will stay back from the prayer. In his narration he says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, by he in whose hands is my soul. لَوْ يَعْلَمُ أَحَدُهُمْ, if one of them knew that there was going to be a fat piece of meat on a bone, or two good pieces of meat, then they would have come to the Isha prayer. Meaning, if they knew they were going to eat, there's some food being served, you find the Masjid packed with people. فَمِنْ جَمِيلِ التَّعَاوُنِ, from the excellent manners of cooperation, meaning between spouses, is al-hifadh ala salah wa istiqamah fi din, is the spouses aiding and assisting one another upon righteousness and istiqamah. So she is an assistant and aid to him, waking him up for Fajr to go pray in Jama'ah at the Masjid, aiding and assisting him upon his khair, aiding him and assisting him upon night prayer, and vice versa. He aids and assists her upon her night prayer and other acts of worship, fasting, certain days out of the month. They are helpers of one another and drawing near to Allah Ta'ala. He said this is from Jamil al-Ta'awun, a beautiful manner of cooperation between spouses. And how much would this serve to strengthen the relationship between the two? A woman is trying to help you get to Jannah. The Jannah. Man is trying to help you get to Jannah. You can't beat that. He said, "Hirs ala an yakuna mabna al-usra ala ta'at," and diligence upon ensuring that the foundation of the family be the obedience of Allah Ta'ala. This is the asl, not the other way around. Not that the origin is that we are a wicked family and occasionally we do things that are good. Rather, let the foundation be that of ta'ah, of obedience to Allah Ta'ala. That's the foundation. Now, he says, alati min aham rakaiziha, and that ta'ah, that obedience, from the most important of its focal points is the affair of the salah, the prayer. Fariidatan kanat am nafila, whether it is obligatory prayers or supererogatory prayers. أو كان من تذكير الزوجين بعضهما بالصيام, or the two spouses encouraging one another to fast, supererogatory fasting, and being diligent upon ensuring that one another does not fall into ma'asi, sins and disobedience, and continuity in advising each other with wisdom. He says, "Min a'zami asbab as-sa'ada," this is from the greatest means of sa'adah, of happiness for the family, and the family staying together, being stable. The Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam, he said, Rahim Allah rajulan qama min al-layli. May Allah have mercy upon the man who stands to pray at night. Thumma ayqala ahlahu, when he wakes his wife up. فَإِنْ أَبَتْ, and if she refuses to get up, he splashes water in her face. And may Allah have mercy likewise upon the woman who stands to pray at night, and she wakes up her husband. And if he refuses to get up, she sprinkles water into his face. Why? In order that they may stand and pray together. He mentions from the beautiful narrations that have been mentioned in this regard, showing how the Salafī were regarding this issue, the men and the women, is that which has come regarding Rayh or Riyah al-Qaysi. Riyah al-Qaysi. He was a man who was a righteous man. He was a righteous man. And he married a woman. And he wanted to test that woman. He wanted to test her. And so he laid down at night for sleep. And the woman, she got up to pray at night. And when 1/4 of the night had passed, she woke him up. And he didn't get up. He's testing her now, right? She woke him up, but he didn't get up. And then half of the night had passed, and she tried to wake him up again. But he's still testing her, so he didn't get up. And then 1/3 of the night had passed, and she woke him up again. He refused to get up, still testing her. And so she said that the night is gone. The whole night is gone. And the soldiers who are guarding our borders, they are still guarding the borders. They're up, meaning they're up, they're alert, they are doing acts of righteousness. So what has tricked me regarding you, O Riyah? How did I get tricked into marrying somebody like you? You won't even get up and pray. Meaning that, meaning what tricked me into accepting your marriage proposal. Now this was a test that from her husband. Her husband, again, was a righteous man. He was testing her. So what we get from this, what we attain from this, is the diligence which they had regarding night prayer. Don't you know that some of the Salaf would refuse to accept a hadith? They wouldn't accept a narration from a man who didn't pray night prayer. They wouldn't accept this hadith. Because the least of night prayer that you can pray is what? One rak'ah. So something that easy that you can just pray one rak'ah and have suffice yourself. And you won't even do that. One rak'ah? But you want to give us narration, a hadith from the Masjid of Allah alayhi wasallam. So they would have refused to accept narration from a person like this. This is how serious they took this particular matter. كما أن وجود المنكرات. Likewise, he said that from the means for the lack or the weakness in istiqamah is the appearance of or the presence of munkarat, of evil things inside of our houses, having evil inside of our houses. And this is from the greatest means of loss and destruction. He says, and so in this particular type of household, the shaitan, he will take up residence. Shaitan will take up residence. And the angels won't enter such a household. He said, so how can such a family find happiness and joy when this is their situation? They have things inside of their homes that anger Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that will bring about the displeasure of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Let's come in the narration that the Messenger of Allah alayhi wasallam said, أَنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ لَا تَدْخُلُوا بَيْتًا فِيهِ كَلْبٌ وَلَا صُورَةٌ, that the angels don't enter a house wherein there is a dog or pictures. They don't enter into such a house. And this is the angels of Rahmah, angels of mercy, angels that descend with barakah, as Ibn Hajar mentioned. As for the angels that record, they never leave your side. They never leave your side. They are always there writing down what you do. But the angels that descend with blessings, and Rahmah, they won't enter into a house where there are the likes of these issues. And some have way more than that. They have way more than that. وَكَذَلِكَ خُلْ بُيُوتْ مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Likewise, the house being devoid of the remembrance of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. No dhikr going on inside that house. No dhikr. وَالْبُرْ عَنِ الْقُرْآنِ. Distance from the Qur'an. And the presence of munkarat, the presence of evil and despicable affairs, music and the likes. هذه البيوت بيوت ميتة. These houses are dead houses. Or dead houses. The houses of deceased people. كما جاء عن النبي, just as has come from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, مثل البيت الذي يذكر الله فيه والذي لا يذكر الله فيه مثل الحي والميت. He said the example of the house wherein Allah Ta'ala is remembered versus the house wherein Allah is not remembered is like the example of the living versus the dead. We ask Allah for safety and security. فحينما تكون البيوت الميتة. So once the house becomes dead, then what happiness do you expect to find inside of it? And what istiqamah and uprightness will they safeguard and hold fast to? وَأَيُّ صَلَاةٍ تُرْتَجَى مِنْهَا. And what righteousness do you expect to find in such a household? And how will the problems that occur be remedied? And the disputes be remedied? For no verses from the Quran are read. Nobody in there reading the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Maybe in Ramadan. Maybe. No narrations are heard. No ahadith are ever mentioned. No sunan are acted upon. No sunan are acted upon inside of that household. And so therefore this house is a gathering point of every mukhalifa, everything that opposes the legislation, every haram, every evil can be gathered inside of that house. وَلَا شَكَ أَنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ تَتَمَكَّنْ فِيهِ. Without doubt the shayateen take up residence and they are living with you. They're living with you. Now, and therefore you will find abundant the asbab al-niza' wal-khilaf, an abundance of argumentation. You wonder why you can't get along. You wonder why you can't get along. والعجب حين يشتكي بعض الناس من بعض البلايا كالسحر والعين والمس وبيته يخلو من كتاب الله. He's saying what is amazing is that you find some of the people complaining about certain calamities that are befalling them, like magic. They're complaining about magic. Everybody's putting magic on me and so on and so forth. Everybody's putting the ain on you and so on and so forth. They're always complaining about this, being afflicted. Whereas the house is devoid of the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. If you're saying your morning and evening supplications, you're reading the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala inside your house. Bashar Allah alayhi salam, he said, he advised me from reciting Al-Baqarah inside of your house. He said, because the Sahara, the magician, can't do anything with it. The magicians can't do anything with Surah Al-Baqarah. If you're reciting these adhkar, you're reciting your Quran inside of your house, what ayn are you going to be worried about? What sihr are you going to be worried about? You have protection by the permission of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now, but these people, they complain about these issues and their house is devoid of the book of Allah and devoid of adhkar, of saying the morning and evening supplication and the likes, and devoid of any form of ruqyah. فَالْمَعَاسِ سَبَبٌ لِمَحْقِ النِّعَمِ. And therefore he said, ma'asi, sins, are a reason for the removal of ni'am, of blessings. The removal of blessings. And the removal of barakah and ilm, of the removal of knowledge. A person commits sins, they will forget knowledge that they have memorized due to sins. Now, and it is a means for the removal of actions. and lifespan and risk. So therefore, let the spouses be diligent upon looking into those things that will bring them near to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and make them upright upon His religion. Because this is the key to happiness and a means for safety and success. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. We'll stop here, inshallah Ta'ala, pick up from Astabah Bathani, second means in the next sitting. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.